Hi, everybody. It's Mr. Steger again. I'd like to talk to you today about energy transfer and its effects, and more specifically, how the environment is affected by energy transfer. So, we understand people use energy. Energy is defined as something that can do work. We use it to heat and cool and provide lighting for our homes. It produces things in factories. It's done in factories. Preparation of food and drinks is completed. And obviously, we use gasoline and electricity for vehicles to move around. Now, I think it's important to understand that all the energy that we use on Earth is essentially from the sun. The sun is the source of that energy. Um, Sunlight provides energy to plants. Complex processes that suns go through or stars go through create more complex atoms responsible for minerals and radioactivity, geothermal energy, and chemical energy. Renewable energy sources are things that can easily be replaced by nature. And there's kind of two types of those. There are the processes that happen when the Earth is exposed to sunlight. Sunlight and wind continually are available. They can't be used up. They're always going to be here. Sunlight might be affected by cloud cover, but it's still there. And trees and crops that are grown are renewable. They grow back relatively quickly. It's important to note that some of our fossil fuels that I'll be talking about next can't be replaced as fast as they're being used up. They are also a product of sunlight's energy. It's just that through millions of years, the plant material and animal material that fossil fuels are made from, it's changed into things like coal, oil, and gas. There's only so much of it, and we're using it up faster than it's being created again. Supplies of our fossil fuels will eventually run out. Now, I talked a little bit about some of the things that make fossil fuels up. They're essentially the remains of plants and animals from millions of years ago. Through lots of heat and pressure and time, the organic material that makes those plants and animals is changed. It's important to note that when you burn fossil fuels like coal, oil, or gas, you release what's called a greenhouse gas, carbon dioxide, and other pollutants. That carbon dioxide has the ability to trap sunlight, the heat from sunlight in our atmosphere, and that's a whole other discussion. But it is important to know that one of the causes of that is from fossil fuels. It takes millions and millions of years for fossil fuels to form. Now, there are three main types of fossil fuels. Coal is essentially from plants that lived hundreds of millions of years ago. One of the things about coal is you have to mine it, and mining can destroy landscapes or pollute groundwater. Petroleum, things like gasoline and oil, are the remains of aquatic organisms, things that lived in the water. That's typically mined from underwater in oceans and on land, and it has to go through a refinery process where different densities of those liquids are separated out. Burning petroleum products in coal release quite a bit of pollutants, much more so than natural gas. Natural gas is trapped in rock. Half the homes in the United States appear to be using natural gas as a heating method. One of the better things about natural gas is that it burns more cleanly than both petroleum or coal products, but it still does produce some carbon dioxide emissions. Now, the alternative sources of energy that we want to look at here, there's several, and I'm going to kind of go through these quickly because there are numerous ones. Solar energy is probably something you've heard of. It's from the sun. It's renewable. One of the things that I think we're most familiar with are from these solar panels, which directly take sunlight and convert it into electricity. But it can also be used in areas that have a lot of sunlight, very few clouds. and the heat from the sunlight can be reflected from a mirror onto the surface of something containing a liquid, typically water, and that vaporizes because of the change in temperature into steam, and that steam gas can drive generators and make electricity. Nuclear energy is much more complex. It's very powerful. It's not renewable, but there's no carbon dioxide emissions produced. However, there is radioactive waste that's produced, and that's a complex problem in itself, and what to do with that type of waste. Hydroelectric is essentially a dam that's built holding up water. The water is released and it flows downhill and drives a generator. The generator spins, and that spinning creates electricity. The thing with hydroelectric is when the dams are built, the water backs up and it floods vast areas. Wind energy is something that if you have driven north of the Kettle Moraine School District and gotten up to around the Fond du Lac area, Elmira area, if you look out your window when you're driving, you'll see some of these big wind vanes, windmills turning. They have generators attached to the back of them. As those blades turn, they spin the generator, creating electricity. Very efficient, very clean, but these wind blades, these wind generators are huge and massive structures. Not everybody's always happy about having them in their backyard. They can be noisy, and there's some studies that show that they do impact migratory birds and bats. They strike the blades as they're flying through the air because of the incredible size of some of these things. Geothermal energy, alternative energy, is actually something that we extract from the earth. There's a couple different types. One type is, if you're living in your home and you go out and you put tubes deep into your soil in your yard, you can actually extract the heat from the earth and use that as an assist in keeping your homes warm in the winter. Conversely, you can also put heat into the soil during the summer to help cool your homes down. The other type of geothermal is someplace like Yellowstone, where they have these hot springs and geysers. In some parts of the world, I'm thinking probably in Iceland, they actually will tap into those hot water sources for heating their homes and their buildings. Biomass energy uses captured energy by plants from the sun, and that energy can either be used directly. Think of burning wood in a fireplace, or it can be converted into other types of fuel. The one that comes to mind most is the use of corn. Corn can be grown. The grain from the corn is used to produce a chemical called ethanol, which is flammable. That ethanol is added to petroleum, gasoline, and that helps extend our vehicles' dependence on petroleum products. Now, the one thing I want you to keep in mind is this law of the conservation of energy. Energy is always there. It can't be created, but it can change form. You can't create energy. You can't destroy energy. It only changes. So I've got a simple example here. In the upper right-hand corner, I've got the sun. Now, if you follow the path in the top down to the corn cob, the plant takes the sun's energy and converts it into plant material. The cob of the corn holds the seed. That seed is then taken and it's processed and distilled into a product called ethanol, which is blended into gasoline, which obviously moves automobiles. So essentially, the car movement is a result of energy from the sun. That's one of the alternative forms of energy. The fossil fuel path for that energy is the sun. Hundreds of millions of years ago, provided energy for plants and animals. Over that time period, it changed into petroleum products. They're mined out, distilled, changed into gasoline, and provides movement for our vehicles on our roadways. So that's all I've got for you today. Thanks for listening.